uncomfortable sleep you manage in a hospital bed with monitors beeping and nurses checking vitals every few hours? At 8 months pregnant, sleep was precious, and the doctors wanted her here for observation after her blood pressure had spiked during her last appointment. The baby was fine, they'd assured her. Just rest and monitoring. But then those hands were yanking her head back, and Naomi's eyes flew open to see a woman's face twisted with rage just inches from hers. "You think you can trap him with that baby?" The woman, Simone, though Naomi had only seen her in photos before, was screaming, her breath sharp with alcohol. "You think I'm just going to disappear?" Naomi tried to push her away, but Simone's fingers were tangled in her braids, pulling hard enough to make her scalp burn. The sudden movement made the foreline in her arm pull tight, and the monitor leads attached to her belly stretched. "Get off me!" Naomi managed to shout, her hands coming up to protect her stomach instinctively. The baby kicked hard inside her as if sensing the danger. Simone's other hand swung wild, catching Naomi across the face. The slap sent shock through Naomi's system more than pain, the disbelief that this was actually happening. In a hospital. While she was pregnant. "He loves me," Simone shrieked. "Not you. Not that baby. Me." Naomi felt the room tilt. Her heart was racing so fast the monitors began alarming, adding their urgent beeping to the chaos. She tried to grab Simone's wrists, tried to get free, but the other woman had the advantage of mobility while Naomi was tangled in wires in her own pregnant body. "Security? I need security in room 412. A nurse's voice cut through the screaming, and suddenly there were hands pulling Simone back. 2 security guards had burst through the door, responding to the monitor alarms. They grabbed Simone, wrestling her away from the bed. "Let me go. She's ruining my life." Simone fought against them, still trying to reach for Naomi even as they dragged her backward. Naomi's hands were shaking as she cradled her belly. The baby was moving frantically now, and Naomi could feel her heart hammering against her ribs. 3 nurses rushed in, surrounding her bed, checking the monitors, checking her face where Simone had struck her. "Naomi, look at me. Are you hurt? Is there any pain in your abdomen?" The head nurse, Patricia, was speaking in that calm but urgent voice that medical professionals use in emergencies. My stomach." Naomi couldn't finish the sentence. A sharp pain suddenly cramped across her lower belly, making her gasp. "We need the doctor now," Patricia said to another nurse, who ran from the room. Through the doorway, Naomi could still hear Simone screaming as security held her in the hallway. "You'll see. He doesn't want you. That baby means nothing." The pain came again, stronger this time. Naomi looked down at her stomach and felt wetness. For a terrible moment she thought it was blood, but then she realized, her water had broken. No, Naomi whispered. "It's too early. The baby's not ready. I'm only 32 weeks. Patricia squeezed her hand. "We're going to take care of you both. The doctor's coming." But all Naomi could think about was that this was supposed to be a routine monitoring visit. She was supposed to go home in the morning. She was supposed to have 8 more weeks to prepare, to set up the nursery, to finish reading all those parenting books stacked on her bedside table at home. Instead, she was going into premature labor because her husband's mistress had just attacked her in a hospital bed. The doctor arrived, already in emergency mode, and everything became a blur of urgent voices and quick movements. They were wheeling her bed out of the room, heading toward the delivery wing. The hallway lights passed overhead in a rhythm that matched her racing heartbeat. "Where's Derek?" Naomi heard herself ask. "Someone needs to call my husband." One of the nurses squeezed her hand but didn't answer. Naomi realized with a sick feeling that Derek was probably with Simone. That's how Simone had known she was here. He told her. Another contraction gripped her and Naomi cried out. Too early, her mind kept repeating. Too small. Too soon. Derek promised he ended it, she gasped between pains. He said he would stop seeing her. He promised. Patricia was still beside her as they pushed through the double doors into the delivery area. Focus on your baby right now, honey. That's all that matters. But even through the pain, Naomi couldn't stop thinking about the look on Simone's face. The pure hatred there. The way she'd said, that baby means nothing. Who attacks a pregnant woman in a hospital? What kind of person does that? The delivery room was bright and cold. There were more people now, NICU nurses standing by, the neonatologist in the corner preparing equipment. They were all here because her baby was coming too early. Because of Simone. Because of Derek's lies. You're fully dilated, the doctor was saying. The baby's coming now, Naomi. We need you to push. She wanted to refuse. wanted to tell them to stop this, to put the baby back, to give her those 8 weeks she was supposed to have. But her body was already bearing down and she had no choice. Through it all, Derek never came. 30 minutes later, they placed a tiny, purple-tinged baby girl on Naomi's chest for just 10 seconds before the NICU team took her away. She was so small. So fragile. 3 pounds and change, someone said. Breathing on her own for now, but they needed to monitor her. Naomi lay in the delivery bed, her arms empty, her face bruised, her body shaking. She could hear her daughter crying, thin, weak cries, as they worked on her across the room. Is she going to be okay? Naomi asked, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. She's a fighter, the neonatologist said, not quite answering the question. 2 hours later, Naomi was in a recovery room when Derek finally showed up. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled. He looked like he'd been sleeping. I just got the messages, he said, hovering in the doorway. I had my phone off. Is the baby? Get out, Naomi said. Her voice was flat, empty of everything she'd once felt for this man. Naomi, I didn't know Simone would. You told her I was here, Naomi interrupted. You told your mistress where to find your pregnant wife. Get out. Derek's face went white. I swear I didn't think she would. The police want to talk to you, Patricia said, appearing in the doorway behind Derek. Her voice was ice. There are 2 officers down the hall waiting to take your statement about the assault. Derek looked between them, his mouth opening and closing. Finally, he turned and walked away. Naomi closed her eyes. Her daughter was fighting for her life in the NICU. Her body ached. Her face throbbed where Simone had hit her. And her marriage, the life she'd built, the future she'd imagined, was shattered. She didn't cry. She was too empty for tears. She just lay there in the quiet room listening to the monitor's beep and wondered how everything had gone so terribly wrong. 5 years earlier, Naomi had thought she'd found her fairy tale. She'd met Derek at a community barbecue in the park. She was there with her grandmother helping serve food to the neighborhood kids. Derek had shown up with some friends, all corporate types who looked out of place among the families and elderly folks who usually attended these events. But Derek hadn't acted out of place. He jumped right in, helping carry coolers, laughing with the kids, complimenting her grandmother's potato salad. When he'd asked for Naomi's number, she'd been charmed by his smile and the way he seemed genuinely interested in everything she said. So you teach kindergarten? He'd asked on their first date. That must take so much patience. I love it, Naomi had told him honestly. Kids that age are still so full of wonder. Everything is new and exciting to them. It reminds me to appreciate the small things. Derek had reached across the table and taken her hand. I could use more of that in my life. All I do is think about sales numbers and quarterly reports. He'd seemed perfect. Stable job as a sales manager at a medical supply company. Nice apartment. Close with his family. Respectful. Ambitious but not consumed by work. Or so she'd thought. Looking back now, Naomi could see the red flags she'd ignored. How Derek always wanted to know where she was. How he'd get quiet when she talked about her students or her friends. How he'd gradually convinced her to spend less time with her grandmother and more time with him. But at the time, she'd mistaken his possessiveness for love. They'd gotten engaged after dating for 8 months. Her grandmother had pulled her aside at the engagement party, held both her hands and looked her in the eyes. Baby girl, you sure about this? Grandma Rose had asked. Love is wonderful, but you don't really know a man until you've been through some hard times with him. I'm sure, Grandma, Naomi had said, squeezing her hands back. Derek makes me happy. Grandma Rose had nodded slowly, but there'd been something in her eyes. Doubt, maybe, or worry. Just promise me you won't lose yourself in being his wife. You're Naomi first. His wife second. You remember that. The wedding had been small. Naomi had wanted something intimate, but Derek had insisted on inviting all his work colleagues and his extended family. Most of the guests were his people. Naomi's side was sparse. Her grandmother, a few teacher friends, some former students' parents who'd become close to her over the years. She should have noticed that imbalance. Should have questioned why Derek seemed to need an audience for their marriage while she just needed him. The first year had been good. Or maybe she'd just been good at ignoring the problems. Derek worked long hours, but that was normal for his job. He traveled sometimes for conferences. He was tired on weekends. All of that seemed reasonable. It was the little things she'd noticed first. How he stopped asking about her day. How he'd scroll through his phone during dinner. How the intimacy between them became routine, scheduled, mechanical. Is everything okay? She'd asked him one night after he'd rolled over and gone to sleep immediately after they'd made love. Yeah, just tired. Work's been crazy. Work was always crazy though. And Derek was always tired. By their second anniversary, Naomi had suggested counseling. I feel like we're roommates instead of married people, she told him. Derek had gotten defensive. I'm working hard to build our future. I'm trying to move up in the company so we can have a better life. I thought you'd appreciate that instead of complaining. She backed down. Told herself she was being too sensitive. Focused on her teaching and tried not to notice how empty their home felt even when they were both in it. Then Grandma Rose had her stroke. Naomi had rushed to the hospital, called Derek crying, begged him to meet her there. He'd shown up 3 hours later, claimed he'd been in a meeting he couldn't get out of. Her grandmother had survived, but she'd needed weeks of rehabilitation. Naomi had taken family leave from teaching to help care for her. Derek had complained about the lost income, even though Naomi had been the one to insist on taking unpaid leave rather than using all her sick days. Your grandmother has other family, Derek had said. Why does it have to be you? Because she raised me, Naomi had snapped back. She took me in when my mother died. She's the only parent I've ever known. Naomi's mother had died in a car accident when Naomi was 6. She had vague memories of her, soft hands braiding her hair, the smell of cocoa butter, a laugh that filled rooms. But mostly she remembered Grandma Rose stepping in, becoming mother and grandmother both. What Naomi didn't have was any memory of a father. Her mother had never married, never talked about who he was. Grandma Rose had always changed the subject when Naomi asked as a child. Eventually Naomi had stopped asking. It's just us, Grandma Rose would say. And us is enough. It had been enough, until Naomi had convinced herself she needed Derek to complete her family. During those weeks caring for her grandmother, Naomi had noticed more changes in Derek. He stayed out later. He was secretive with his phone. Once she'd called his office and been told he'd left for the day, but he didn't come home for another 4 hours. When she'd confronted him, he turned it around on her. You're never home anymore. You're always at your grandmother's. Maybe if you paid attention to your marriage, I wouldn't need to work late to avoid an empty house. The guilt had worked. She'd convinced Grandma Rose to move into a nursing facility that specialized in stroke recovery so Naomi could go back to work and focus on her marriage. Things had seemed better for a while. Derek had seemed more attentive. They'd gone on dates again. He'd brought her flowers. Then she'd gotten pregnant. Naomi had found out on a random Tuesday morning. She'd been feeling tired, queasy. She'd taken a test before work, seen those 2 pink lines and felt joy explode through her entire body. Baby. She was going to have a baby. And despite everything, despite all the rough patches, she believed this would fix them. This would make them a real family. She told Derek that night over a special dinner she'd cooked. She'd wrapped the pregnancy test in a little box with a bow. She'd been so excited. Derek's face had gone pale. Are you sure? Yes. I took 3 tests. They're all positive. We're having a baby, Derek. He'd stood up from the table, paced the kitchen. This is really fast. We weren't planning this. I know it's a surprise, but surprises can be good, right? She'd walked over to him, tried to take his hands. We're going to be parents. Derek had pulled away. I need to think. This is a lot. He'd left the house that night. Said he was going for a drive. He didn't come back until morning. That should have been her first clue that something was seriously wrong. But Naomi had been so focused on the baby, so focused on nesting and preparing, that she'd convinced herself Derek just needed time to adjust. She'd started fixing up the spare room as a nursery. She'd bought baby books and started reading everything about pregnancy and childbirth. She told Grandma Rose, who'd been thrilled despite still recovering from her stroke. A great-grandbaby, Grandma Rose had said, tears in her eyes. Oh, Naomi. This is wonderful. Derek had gone through the motions. He'd come to the first ultrasound appointment. He'd made appropriate noises when they'd found out the baby was a girl. But Naomi could feel his distance growing. At 4 months pregnant, she'd found the restaurant receipt. It had fallen out of Derek's jacket pocket when she was doing laundry. A receipt for 2 people at an expensive Italian place across town. On a night he'd told her he was working late. She'd felt sick. She checked his credit card statements online, something she'd never done before. There were more receipts. Hotels, bars, gift purchases she'd never received. The text messages had been harder to access, but one night when Derek was in the shower, she'd grabbed his phone. She'd known his passcode, he'd never changed it from their wedding date. The messages with Simone had been explicit. Plans to meet. Complaints about Naomi. Promises that once this baby thing was over, they'd be together properly. She's letting herself go with the pregnancy anyway. I can barely stand to look at her. That message had broken something in Naomi. She'd read it 3 times, each word a fresh cut. She'd confronted Derek that same night. Shown him the receipts, the statements, the messages. Derek had cycled through the standard cheater's playbook. Denial, then anger that she'd invaded his privacy, then excuses about feeling trapped, then finally tears and promises. I'll end it. I swear, Naomi. Meant nothing. You and the baby, you're my real family. I'll break it off with her tomorrow. How long? Naomi had asked, her voice hollow. 6 months. But I swear I'll end it. 6 months. Half her pregnancy, he'd been with another woman. While Naomi had been growing their child, Derek had been growing a relationship with Simone. Naomi had wanted to leave. Had even started looking at apartments online. But then she'd gone to her 20-week ultrasound alone and seen her daughter's perfect profile on the screen. She'd watched her tiny hand move to her mouth, and she'd felt the baby kick for the first time. She'd thought about her own childhood. Growing up without a father. Having only one parent. She'd wanted better for her daughter. So she'd made the mistake of believing Derek's promises. She'd agreed to try to save the marriage. They'd started counseling. Derek had claimed he'd ended things with Simone. He'd been more present at home, more involved in pregnancy planning. Naomi had let herself hope. But Derek had been lying the entire time. He'd just gotten better at hiding it. Secret phone. Different credit card. More careful planning. And Simone. Simone had been furious at being dumped, even though she'd known Derek was married all along. She'd been watching, waiting, growing more obsessed. Until that night in the hospital when all Derek's lies had finally exploded into violence. Now, lying in her recovery bed, Naomi thought about all those moments she'd ignored her instincts. All the times she'd chosen to believe Derek instead of trusting herself. Grandma Rose had been right. She hadn't known Derek at all. And she'd lost herself completely in trying to be his wife. Well, never again. The morning after the attack, Naomi woke to find 2 police officers waiting outside her hospital room. Detective Harris was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. Her partner, Officer Torres, was younger, taking notes on everything. Mrs. Bennett, we know you've been through a traumatic experience, Detective Harris said, pulling a chair close to Naomi's bed. But we need to get your statement about what happened yesterday. Naomi recounted everything. The hands in her hair. The slap. The screaming. How Simone had known she was in the hospital. How Derek must have told her. And you'd never met Simone Crawford before yesterday? Detective Harris asked. Never in person. I found out about the affair 6 months ago. Derek promised he'd ended it. Naomi's voice cracked. Obviously he didn't. Officer Torres looked up from his notes. We've already arrested Ms. Crawford for assault. Given that you were pregnant and in a hospital bed, she's looking at serious charges. But we need to ask, do you want to press charges? Yes, Naomi said without hesitation. What she did put my baby at risk. My daughter is in the NICU fighting to survive because that woman attacked me. Detective Harris nodded approvingly. Good. Don't let anyone talk you out of it. What she did was criminal, no matter what her relationship with your husband was. After they left, Patricia came in with a wheelchair. Ready to see your daughter? Naomi had been allowed to visit the NICU briefly the night before, but she'd been in too much shock to fully process it. Now, as Patricia wheeled her through the double doors into the NICU, the reality hit her. Her daughter was in an incubator, wires and tubes attached to her tiny body. She was wearing a diaper that looked impossibly huge on her 3-pound frame. A feeding tube ran through her nose. A monitor tracked her heart rate and oxygen levels. She's doing well, the NICU nurse, Nicole, told Naomi. Her breathing is strong. Her vitals are stable. She's small, but she's a fighter. Can I touch her? Naomi asked. Of course. You can reach through the incubator ports. Talk to her too. She knows your voice. Naomi slipped her hands through the circular openings in the incubator's side. Her daughter's skin was warm, impossibly soft. Naomi gently stroked her tiny arm, barely thicker than Naomi's thumb. Hi, baby girl, Naomi whispered. It's Mommy. You're so strong. You're doing such a good job. The baby's hand opened and closed as if reaching for Naomi's finger. When Naomi offered it, those tiny fingers wrapped around hers with surprising strength. Naomi felt tears roll down her cheeks. I'm so sorry. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. You were supposed to have more time. You weren't supposed to come into the world like this. This isn't your fault, Nicole said gently. You didn't cause this. But Naomi felt like she had. If she'd left Derek when she first found out about the affair, If she hadn't tried to make it work? If she'd protected herself and her baby better? Stop, Patricia said, reading her mind. I can see what you're thinking and you need to stop. The only people responsible for what happened are your husband and his mistress. You did nothing wrong. Naomi stayed in the NICU for an hour, just touching her daughter, talking to her, willing her to keep fighting. She hadn't even named her yet. They'd had a list of names, but those had been chosen with Derek, and Naomi couldn't bring herself to use any of them now. When Patricia wheeled her back to her room, Grandma Rose was waiting there. "Oh, baby," Grandma Rose said, tears streaming down her face. She was in her own wheelchair, having convinced someone from her nursing facility to drive her here. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Naomi fell into her grandmother's arms and finally let herself sob. All the shock, all the fear, all the betrayal came pouring out. He was cheating the whole time, Grandma. Even during counseling. Even after he promised. And that woman, she tried to hurt my baby. I know. Grandma Rose stroked Naomi's hair the way she had when Naomi was little. "But your baby's alive. You're alive. And you're going to get through this." How do I get through this? Grandma Rose pulled back, holding Naomi's face in her weathered hands. "The same way you've gotten through every hard thing in your life. One day at a time. One breath at a time. You're stronger than you know, Naomi. You've always been stronger than you know." A nurse brought Grandma Rose a chair so she could sit beside Naomi's bed properly. They sat together in silence for a while, just holding hands. "I should have seen it," Grandma Rose finally said. "At the wedding I had a feeling. But I didn't want to ruin your happiness. It's not your fault either, Grandma. Derek fooled both of us." "Men like that are good at fooling people," Grandma Rose said, her voice hard in a way Naomi rarely heard. "They know what to say, how to act. They find good women and use their goodness against them." Naomi thought about that. Was that what Derek had done? Found her goodness, her willingness to see the best in people, her desire for family, and exploited it? "I need to divorce him," Naomi said. "I can't stay married to him. Not after this." "Good. You file those papers as soon as you're out of this hospital. Don't let him talk you out of it with more promises." Derek showed up that afternoon. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, his eyes red. He tried to come into the room but Grandma Rose blocked the door. "You got nerve showing your face here," Grandma Rose said. "I need to talk to Naomi," Derek pleaded. "Please. I need to explain." "Explain what?" Naomi said from her bed. "Explain how you told your mistress where to find me? Explain how your lies put our daughter in the NICU. I didn't know Simone would do that. I swear, Naomi. I had no idea she was capable of." "You've been lying for months," Naomi interrupted. "You promised you ended it. You lied to the counselor. You lied to me every single day. Why would I believe anything you say now?" Derek's face crumpled. "Because I love you. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I love you and our daughter. Love doesn't look like this, Derek. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't cheat. Love doesn't tell the other woman where to find your pregnant wife. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make it right." "There's no fixing this," Naomi said, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. "We're done. I want a divorce." Derek looked like she'd hit him. "You don't mean that. You're emotional right now, you're hurt, but once you calm down." "I'm perfectly calm," Naomi said. "I'm done, Derek. I'm done with your lies, your excuses, your promises. You've shown me exactly who you are. I'm finally believing you. What about our daughter? She needs a father. She needs parents who respect themselves and each other. She needs to see what real love looks like, not this broken mess we've been pretending is a marriage." Derek turned to Grandma Rose as if she might take his side. But Grandma Rose just crossed her arms and stared him down. "You heard her. Time to go. Please, Naomi. Please, just think about this. Don't make decisions right now." "Security's on their way," Patricia said, appearing in the doorway. "Mr. Bennett, you need to leave voluntarily or you'll be removed." Derek looked between all three women, seemed to realize he had no allies here, and finally backed out of the room. "I'm not giving up on us," he said from the hallway. "I'm going to prove to you that I can change." After he left, Naomi felt exhausted. Her body hurt. Her face hurt where Simone had hit her. Her heart hurt worst of all. "I really thought I could make it work," she said quietly. "I really believed people could change if they wanted to badly enough." "Some people can change," Grandma Rose said. "But they have to want to change for themselves, not because they got caught." Derek doesn't want to change. He just wants to not face consequences. Over the next few days, Naomi focused on recovering and visiting her daughter. The NICU staff were wonderful, teaching her how to change tiny diapers, how to hold her daughter with all the wires carefully arranged, how to recognize the signs that she was doing well. Naomi named her daughter Isabella. It meant devoted to God, and Naomi felt like she needed all the divine help she could get right now. The story of the attack had spread through social media. Someone at the hospital had leaked information, and suddenly Naomi's private nightmare was public news. Her phone was flooded with messages from people she barely knew, offering sympathy or worse, asking for details. Derek's mother called, crying, begging Naomi to forgive her son. Derek's sister called, angry, accusing Naomi of being vindictive and trying to keep Derek from his daughter. He made one mistake. Derek's sister yelled through the phone. One mistake and you're throwing away your whole marriage? Naomi hung up on her. The worst call came from Derek himself, 3 days after she'd kicked him out of her hospital room. Simone's lawyer is saying you provoked her, Derek said. They're claiming she was emotionally disturbed because you refused to let me go. I refused to let you go? Naomi repeated, incredulous. Derek, you're the one who's married. You're the one who cheated. How is any of this my fault? I'm not saying it is. I'm just telling you what her lawyer is saying. And I think maybe we should present a united front. Maybe if we went to the prosecutor together and asked them to drop the charges against Simone. Absolutely not. Naomi, be reasonable. Simone's facing serious jail time. Her life is going to be ruined. If we show mercy. She attacked me in a hospital bed while I was pregnant. She caused our daughter to be born 2 months early. Isabella is fighting for her life in the NICU because of what Simone did. And you want me to show mercy? I just think we're all going to have to see each other, co-parenting and everything. Maybe if we don't press charges, Simone will be more cooperative about. Naomi laughed, a harsh sound. You still want to be with her. After everything, you still want Simone. Derek was quiet for a long moment. I care about her. I can't just turn that off. Then you've made your choice, Naomi said. And it's not me and Isabella. It's never been us. She hung up and blocked his number. That night, alone in her hospital room, Naomi let herself truly grieve. Not just for her marriage, but for the future she'd imagined. The family photos that would never be taken. The holidays together. Growing old with someone who actually loved her. All of it gone. But when she visited Isabella the next morning and held that tiny fighting girl against her chest, Naomi felt something shift inside her. Maybe the future she'd imagined had been wrong anyway. Maybe she'd been trying to fit herself into someone else's vision instead of creating her own. Isabella's little fingers wrapped around Naomi's thumb again, and Naomi made a promise. I'm going to show you what strength looks like, she whispered to her daughter. I'm going to show you that you don't need someone else to complete you. I'm going to teach you to value yourself so much that you'll never accept the kind of treatment I accepted from your father. Isabella made a small sound, almost like agreement. Naomi smiled through her tears. Yeah, baby girl. We're going to be just fine. Just you and me and Grandma. We're enough. And for the first time since the attack, Naomi believed it. Naomi was released from the hospital 3 days after the attack, but Isabella had to stay in the NICU. Walking out of that hospital without her baby was one of the hardest things Naomi had ever done. She's in the best hands, Nicole reassured her. And you can come visit anytime. 24 hours a day. We encourage parents to be here as much as possible. Grandma Rose had arranged for Naomi to stay at her nursing facility temporarily. The staff had set up a small guest room, and Grandma Rose's friends in the facility had rallied around Naomi with food, advice, and fierce protectiveness. That husband of yours better not show his face here, Mrs. Johnson from room 302 said. She was 85 and walked with a cane, but she had the spirit of someone half her age. We may be old, but we'll chase him off if he tries any nonsense. Naomi appreciated their support more than she could say. Being surrounded by these strong older women who'd lived through their own heartbreaks and come out the other side gave her hope that she could do the same. On her first night back, Naomi called a lawyer. She Googled divorce attorney and found someone who specialized in complicated divorces involving infidelity. Mrs. Bennett, I'm going to be straight with you, attorney Rachel Graham said during their phone consultation. Divorce is never easy, but given what's happened, you have a strong case. The infidelity, the attack by his mistress, your daughter being born prematurely as a result, all of that works in your favor for custody and support. I don't want his money, Naomi said. I just want out. With all due respect, you have a premature baby who's going to need ongoing medical care. You're on maternity leave from teaching, which doesn't pay your full salary. You need to think practically about you and your daughter's future. Naomi knew Rachel was right. Pride wouldn't pay for Isabella's medical bills or keep a roof over their heads. What's the process like? Naomi asked. First, we file a petition for divorce. Given the circumstances, I'll also file for an emergency custody order to ensure you have primary custody while the divorce is pending. Your husband will be served with papers. Then we start the discovery process, dividing assets, negotiating support. How long does it take? In this state? 6 months minimum, but cases like yours can take a year or more if he contests anything. A year. A year of being legally tied to Derek. A year of negotiations and lawyers and dragging everything out. But the alternative, staying married, was worse. Let's do it, Naomi said. The next week was a blur. Naomi spent every day at the hospital with Isabella, watching her daughter slowly gain weight and strength. Isabella was off the feeding tube now, taking bottles. She was breathing on her own consistently. Every milestone felt like a victory. Derek tried to visit the NICU, but Naomi had him blocked from her visitation times. He could only come during his designated hours, and he had to do it when Naomi wasn't there. This is my daughter too, he argued to the NICU staff. And the mother has requested separate visitation due to ongoing legal issues, the head nurse explained. We're here to protect our patients and their families. This arrangement stays until the court says otherwise. Naomi felt guilty about keeping Derek from Isabella. But every time she weakened, she remembered the recording she'd found on her phone from the counseling session. She'd forgotten her phone had a voice memo app open during their last counseling appointment, 2 weeks before the attack. She'd been reviewing it and heard Derek lie directly to the therapist. I ended the affair months ago, Derek had said on the recording. I've been completely faithful since Naomi found out. I'm committed to rebuilding trust. The therapist had praised his honesty and dedication. Meanwhile, the credit card records Naomi's lawyer had subpoenaed showed Derek had taken Simone to a hotel that very same week. He'd looked the counselor in the eye, looked Naomi in the eye, and lied without hesitation. That recording had hardened something in Naomi. Derek wasn't just a cheater. He was a skilled, practiced liar who felt no remorse about his deception. 2 weeks after Isabella's birth, the divorce papers were served. Derek called immediately, his voice a mix of anger and desperation. Naomi's new phone number was unlisted, but somehow he'd gotten it. Probably from his mother. You actually did it? You actually filed for divorce. What did you think I was going to do? Naomi asked. She was in the NICU watching Isabella sleep. Her daughter had gained 4 ounces and was now 3 pounds 7 ounces. Still tiny but growing. I thought you'd calm down. I thought we'd talk like adults. But you're trying to take my daughter away from me. I'm not taking Isabella away. You can have visitation. But I'm asking for primary custody, yes. Based on what? I'm her father. I have rights. Based on your mistress attacking me while pregnant. Based on you lying to me, to our counselor, to everyone. Based on the fact that you're still defending Simone even after what she did. I'm not defending her. But you pressing charges is making everything worse. For who? For you and Simone? Good. Derek's voice rose. You're being vindictive. You're trying to punish me. No, Derek. I'm protecting my daughter and myself. There's a difference. She hung up and blocked that number too. But Derek didn't give up. He started showing up at the hospital, trying to corner Naomi in the parking lot. The hospital security had to escort her to her car multiple times. Mrs. Bennett, we can get a restraining order if needed, Detective Harris told her when Naomi reported the harassment. This is stalking behavior. He's her father though. I don't want to make things worse. He's also the person whose actions led to your daughter being born prematurely. You have every right to protect yourself. Naomi didn't get the restraining order yet, but she kept it as an option. Meanwhile, Simone's court case was moving forward. The prosecutor assigned to the case, a stern woman named Amanda Walsh, had contacted Naomi directly. Miss Crawford is being charged with aggravated assault on a pregnant woman, Walsh explained. This is a serious felony. She's facing up to 10 years in prison. 10 years. Naomi felt sick. As much as she hated what Simone had done, the idea of someone going to prison for that long because of her felt overwhelming. She attacked you while you were in a hospital bed, 8 months pregnant, Walsh said firmly. She caused your daughter to be born prematurely. These are not minor crimes. Ms. Crawford's lawyer is already trying to negotiate a plea deal, but I want to make sure you're comfortable with any agreement before I consider it. What kind of plea deal? Reduced charges in exchange for admitting guilt. Probably looking at 3 to 5 years with possibility of parole. And if we go to trial? Then it's up to a jury. But given the evidence, hospital cameras captured the entire assault, I'm confident we get a conviction on the full charges. Naomi thought about Isabella fighting in that incubator. About how small she'd been when she was born. About the fear Naomi had felt thinking her daughter might not survive. I'll support whatever you think is right, Naomi told Walsh. I just want justice. Good. Because Ms. Crawford's lawyer is trying to paint you as the villain in all this. They're claiming you manipulated Derek with the pregnancy, that you were aware of the affair and accepted it, and that Simone was emotionally disturbed because Derek kept going back to you. Naomi felt her anger flare. None of that is true. I know. And we'll prove it in court. But I want you prepared for them to attack your character. Defense lawyers do that in cases like this. Try to make the victim look bad to justify the defendant's actions. As if on cue, Naomi started getting anonymous messages on social media. Someone had created fake accounts to harass her. You're a homewrecker who trapped a man with a baby. Simone loved him first. You stole him and now you want her to go to jail for fighting for her man. I hope your baby doesn't make it. That's karma for ruining Simone's life. That last message made Naomi's hands shake. Someone had wished death on her daughter. On a premature baby fighting for her life. She reported the messages to both the police and the prosecutor. They traced the accounts and found they were created from Derek's IP address. It might not be Derek himself, Detective Harris explained. Could be Simone using his internet. But either way, this is harassment and it strengthens your case. The messages stopped after that, but the damage was done. Naomi felt violated in a new way. Wasn't the attack enough? Did they have to come after her baby too? She spent that night in the NICU just holding Isabella. The nurses let her do skin-to-skin contact, where Isabella lay on Naomi's bare chest, both of them covered with a blanket. It was supposed to help premature babies regulate their temperature and heartbeat. But mostly, it helped Naomi remember why she was doing this. You're my whole world, she whispered to Isabella. I know you'll have questions about your daddy someday. I know you'll wonder why we're not together. But I promise you, baby girl, I'm going to raise you to know your worth. I'm going to teach you that love doesn't hurt. That promises mean something. That you deserve someone who chooses you every single day. Isabella made a small sound and snuggled closer to Naomi's chest. 3 weeks after the attack, Derek's lawyer sent a formal response to the divorce petition. In it, Derek was requesting joint custody, alleging that Naomi was an unfit mother due to emotional instability following the birth. Are you kidding me? Naomi said to Rachel. I'm emotionally unstable? He's the one who had an affair and whose mistress attacked me. It's a standard defense tactic, Rachel said calmly. They're trying to shift blame. Don't worry, we have plenty of evidence of who the unstable party is here. The affair, the lies, the harassment. The judge will see through this. Why is he fighting me on custody? He barely wanted this baby. When I told him I was pregnant, he looked horrified. Control, Rachel said simply. Men like Derek don't like losing control. This isn't really about Isabella. It's about punishing you for leaving. That made a horrible kind of sense. Derek had always needed to be in charge. Had always made decisions for both of them. Had always steered their life in the direction he wanted. Now Naomi was making decisions for herself, and he couldn't stand it. The court battle was going to be ugly. Naomi could feel it. But she'd come this far. She wasn't backing down now. 1 month after the attack, Naomi was finally allowed to take Isabella home, or rather to Grandma Rose's nursing facility. Isabella was still small, just over 4 pounds, but she was healthy enough to leave the NICU. The day they were discharged, Naomi broke down crying in the parking lot. Happy tears this time. Isabella was buckled into her car seat, impossibly tiny in the infant seat, but she was coming home. We made it, baby, Naomi whispered. You fought so hard and we made it. That night, with Isabella sleeping in a bassinet beside Grandma Rose's bed, Naomi allowed herself to imagine the future. Not the one she'd lost with Derek, but a new one. Different, maybe harder, but honest. You're going to be okay, Grandma Rose said, watching Naomi watch Isabella. Both of you are going to be just fine. Naomi wanted to believe her. She just had to get through the divorce first. The divorce proceedings dragged through winter into early spring. Derek fought Naomi on everything. Custody, money, even their wedding china. He's making this as difficult as possible to punish you, Rachel explained after another contentious meeting. But we're building a solid case. The documented affair, the lies during counseling, the harassment, it's all working in your favor. But living through it was exhausting. Naomi was back at work, teaching her kindergartners while Isabella stayed with Grandma Rose during the day. The nursing facility had been understanding about the arrangement, even providing some free childcare through their staff. "We take care of our own," Mrs. Johnson said, often sitting with Isabella while Grandma Rose napped. "And this little one is definitely one of ours." Isabella was thriving now. At 4 months old, 2 months adjusted for her prematurity, she was smiling, cooing, gaining weight steadily. She had Naomi's eyes and, unfortunately, Derek's nose. But Naomi tried not to hold that against her. Derek was exercising his court-ordered visitation every other weekend. Naomi had to hand Isabella over to him every other Friday, and it killed her every single time. She didn't trust him. Didn't trust that he was actually watching Isabella and not pawning her off on his mother. Didn't trust that Simone wouldn't be around. "If I find out Simone has any contact with my daughter, I will drag you back to court so fast," Naomi warned Derek during one particularly tense handoff. "Simone and I aren't even together anymore," Derek said. "She blames me for her legal troubles. Says I should have protected her better." Naomi almost laughed. Almost. The relationship that had destroyed her marriage, that had led to her being attacked, had fallen apart once actual consequences appeared. What a surprise. But she didn't trust Derek's claim. And her suspicions were confirmed when she picked Isabella up after one weekend and found a woman's earring in Isabella's diaper bag. Not Naomi's style. Probably Simone's. "Are you kidding me?" Naomi confronted Derek in the parking lot. "You have Simone around my daughter? That's not hers. My mom was watching Isabella. Might be hers." "Your mother doesn't wear diamond studs, Derek. Stop lying." "I'm not lying. You're just looking for reasons to keep Isabella from me." A woman walking by stopped and stared at them. Naomi realized they were yelling in public, and she forced herself to calm down. "We'll let the judge decide," Naomi said coldly. "I'm documenting everything." And she was. Every late return. Every forgotten supply. Every time Derek showed up to pick up Isabella smelling like alcohol. Every suspicious earring or strange explanation. Rachel added it all to their case file. Simone's trial was scheduled for May. As the date approached, Naomi felt her anxiety spike. She'd have to testify. Have to relive the attack in front of a courtroom full of strangers. Walsh prepared her carefully. "They're going to try to discredit you. Make you seem unstable, vindictive, unreasonable. I need you to stay calm no matter what they ask. Answer only what's asked. Don't volunteer extra information. What if I cry?" "Then you cry. You're a victim of assault. You're allowed to have emotions. But don't let them make you angry. Angry looks bad to a jury. Sad looks sympathetic." Naomi practiced her testimony with Walsh multiple times. She reviewed the hospital records. She looked at photos of her bruised face from right after the attack. She read her own statement to police from that night. She thought she was prepared. She wasn't. The courthouse was intimidating, all marble and dark wood and serious-faced people in suits. Naomi wore a simple blue dress and kept her makeup minimal. Walsh had advised looking maternal and sympathetic. Simone sat at the defense table in an outfit that probably cost more than Naomi made in a month. Her lawyer was a slick man in an expensive suit who kept smiling at the jury. Naomi took the stand and swore to tell the truth. Walsh walked her through the events of that day. Naomi described being in the hospital for monitoring. Described waking up to hands in her hair. Described the attack, the pain, going into labor. "And what was the outcome of this premature labor?" Walsh asked. "My daughter, Isabella, was born at 32 weeks. She weighed 3 pounds, 1 ounce. She spent 5 weeks in the NICU. And is she healthy now?" "Yes, thank God. But she could have died. We were very lucky." Then came Simone's lawyer for cross-examination. "Mrs. Bennett, you knew about your husband's relationship with my client before the incident, correct?" "I knew he was having an affair, yes." "And you chose to stay married to him?" "I was trying to save my marriage for my daughter's sake." "But you could have left. You chose to stay and try to keep a man who clearly had feelings for someone else. Isn't that right?" Naomi felt her face flush. "I chose to believe my husband when he said he wanted to work on our marriage." "And isn't it true that you told your husband you were pregnant specifically to keep him from leaving you?" "No. I told him I was pregnant because I was pregnant. We're married. That's what you do when you're married and pregnant." But convenient timing, wasn't it? Right when he was pulling away, suddenly there's a baby? Walsh objected. The judge sustained. But the damage was done. The lawyer had planted the idea that Naomi had manipulated Derek with the pregnancy. Mrs. Bennett, on the day of the incident, did you call my client and taunt her about the pregnancy? What? No. I didn't even have her phone number. But you posted on social media about the baby, didn't you? Posted ultrasound photos, nursery photos, all of that? I posted normal pregnancy updates on my private social media. Nothing is private on social media, Mrs. Bennett. You knew Ms. Crawford could see those posts. You knew it would upset her. Weren't you, in fact, rubbing the pregnancy in her face? I was excited about my baby. I wasn't thinking about your client at all. So you admit you were publicly flaunting your pregnancy? Walsh objected again. The judge told the defense lawyer to move on. But Naomi felt shaken. They were twisting everything, making her excitement about her baby seem like psychological warfare. The questioning went on for another hour. By the end, Naomi was exhausted and felt like she'd been the one on trial instead of Simone. You did fine, Walsh assured her afterward. Juries see through tactics like that. They'll remember you're the victim here. But Naomi didn't feel like a victim. She felt like she'd been attacked all over again, just with words instead of fists. The trial lasted 3 days. Other witnesses testified. The nurses who'd seen the attack, security guards who'd pulled Simone off Naomi, the doctor who delivered Isabella. The hospital security footage was played, showing Simone bursting into Naomi's room and attacking her. Watching that footage was surreal. Naomi saw herself in that bed, saw Simone's hands in her hair, saw her own face contorted in fear and pain. She saw the moment the monitors started alarming. Saw nurses running into the room. Several jurors looked disturbed. One woman was crying. Simone testified in her own defense. She claimed she'd been drinking, that she didn't remember the attack clearly, that she'd been emotionally disturbed by Derek's mixed signals. He kept telling me he loved me, Simone sobbed on the stand. He kept saying he was going to leave her. Then she got pregnant and he said he had to try to make it work. I just wanted to talk to her. I wanted to make her understand that Derek and I were real, that we loved each other. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Naomi watched this performance and felt sick. Simone was painting herself as the victim, as some lovesick woman driven crazy by a man. But the security footage didn't lie, and the jury seemed to see that. After deliberating for 6 hours, they came back with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Simone's face crumpled. Her family in the courtroom gasped. Her lawyer looked grim. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later. Outside the courthouse, Walsh was triumphant. This is exactly what we wanted. The conviction will help your divorce case too, shows Derek's poor judgment in the people he associates with. Naomi just felt empty. Yes, justice had been served. But it didn't undo what had happened. Didn't give her back those lost weeks of pregnancy. Didn't erase the trauma. She went home to Isabella and held her daughter close. Isabella was babbling now, making all sorts of sounds. She smiled when she saw Naomi, her whole face lighting up. Mama's got you, Naomi whispered. Always. No matter what. At sentencing, the judge gave Simone 5 years in prison with possibility of parole after 3. Ms. Crawford, you attacked a pregnant woman in a hospital bed, the judge said sternly. You endangered both her life and her unborn child's life. Your actions resulted in a premature birth that could have ended in tragedy. The only reason you're not facing more serious charges is that the baby survived and is healthy. But your reckless, violent behavior cannot be excused by emotional distress or alcohol consumption. You made choices that day and now you must face the consequences. Simone was led away in handcuffs, still crying. Derek was in the courtroom. He looked devastated. As Naomi walked past him to leave, he grabbed her arm. Are you happy now? Simone's going to prison because of you. Naomi pulled her arm free. Simone's going to prison because she attacked me. You want to blame someone? Blame yourself. You created this whole situation with your lies. I loved you both. I was confused. I made mistakes. But you didn't have to destroy Simone's life. She tried to destroy mine first, Naomi said. And honestly, Derek, I'm done caring about your feelings or Simone's. I'm done being the understanding wife who accepts whatever scraps you throw her way. From now on, I'm only focused on Isabella and myself. You and Simone can deal with the consequences of your own actions. She walked away, leaving him standing there. For the first time since the attack, Naomi felt something shift inside her. Not quite peace. Not yet. But something close to it. She'd faced her attacker in court. She'd told her truth. She'd seen justice served. Now it was time to focus on building the life she and Isabella deserved. 2 days after Simone's sentencing, Naomi received a phone call that would change everything. "Miss Bennett? This is Stephen Frost. I'm an attorney with Frost & Associates. I represent Lawrence Montgomery. He'd like to meet with you." Naomi was confused. "I don't know anyone named Lawrence Montgomery." "He's aware you don't know him. But he knows you. He's asked me to arrange a meeting at your convenience. He has important information to share with you." "Is this about the trial? Is he a reporter or something?" "No, Miss Bennett. This is personal. Mr. Montgomery is, well, he'd prefer to explain in person. Would you be willing to meet with him? I can assure you this is legitimate and important." Naomi's first instinct was to say no. She'd been through enough lately without adding mysterious meetings to the mix. But something in the lawyer's tone made her curious. "Can you at least tell me what this is regarding?" There was a pause. Then, "It's regarding your family history, Miss Bennett." Her family history? Naomi only had Grandma Rose. Everyone else was gone. What could this possibly be about? "Fine," Naomi said. "I'll meet him. But in a public place." They arranged to meet at a coffee shop near the hospital the following Saturday morning. Grandma Rose agreed to watch Isabella. "You be careful," Grandma Rose said. "Don't give out any personal information until you know what this is about." "I won't." The lawyer seemed legitimate though. "I looked up his firm, they're real, not some scam." "Still, you be careful." Saturday morning, Naomi arrived at the coffee shop early. She ordered tea and sat at a table near the window where she could see anyone approaching. At exactly 10 o'clock, a black man in his early 60s walked in. He was distinguished looking with silver-threaded hair, an expensive suit, and an air of authority. Behind him was the lawyer, Stephen Frost, whom Naomi recognized from the photo on his firm's website. The older man looked directly at Naomi, and something in his expression made her breath catch. He looked like he was seeing a ghost. "Miss Bennett?" he said, approaching her table. "I'm Lawrence Montgomery. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Up close, Naomi could see his eyes. They were the same color as hers, an unusual light brown that looked almost gold in certain light. She'd inherited those eyes from her mother, or so Grandma Rose had always said. "Please sit down," Naomi said, confused and curious. Lawrence sat across from her while his lawyer took a table nearby, giving them privacy but remaining present. "I'm sure you're wondering why I asked to meet you," Lawrence began. His voice was deep, measured. "I'll be direct. I'm your father." Naomi felt the world tilt. "What?" "Your mother was Diane Harris. We were together briefly when she was 23. She became pregnant with you. I wasn't ready to be a father. I was in law school focused on my career. When Diane told me she was pregnant, I told her I couldn't be involved. I offered money for an abortion. She refused. I didn't handle it well. I walked away." Naomi couldn't breathe. Her father whom she'd wondered about her entire life, who'd been a mystery, a blank space. He was sitting across from her in a coffee shop explaining that he'd walked away from her before she was even born. "Why are you telling me this now?" Naomi managed to ask. "Because I saw the news about your attack. About the trial. I've been following your story and I realized..." His voice cracked slightly. "I realized I'd failed you twice. Once before you were born and again by not being there for you through this trauma. You've been following my story?" Naomi felt violated all over again. "How? Why?" "I'm a federal judge," Lawrence said. "Lawrence Montgomery. I've kept track of you over the years. I knew where you lived, where you worked. I knew when you got married. I knew when you got pregnant. But I never reached out because I assumed you were better off without me. Your grandmother made it very clear after your mother died that I wasn't welcome in your life." Naomi thought of Grandma Rose, who'd raised her alone. Who'd never once mentioned Naomi's father except to say he wasn't in the picture. "Did my mother know you were keeping track?" "No. I stayed away like she asked. Like your grandmother insisted. But I always..." He paused, seeming to gather himself. "I always regretted it. I always wondered what kind of person you'd become. And when I saw the news about what happened to you, saw you testifying in that courtroom, I was so angry. Angry at the woman who hurt you, angry at your husband for betraying you, but mostly angry at myself for not being there to protect you." "I don't need you to protect me," Naomi said, finding her voice. "I've been fine without you for 30 years. "I know. I can see that. You're strong like your mother was." You're raising your daughter alone, working, rebuilding your life after a betrayal that would have destroyed many people. I'm not here because I think you need me. I'm here because I need to make this right. If you'll let me." Naomi stared at him. Part of her wanted to throw her tea in his face and walk out. How dare he show up now, after 30 years, and act like he could just insert himself into her life. But another part of her, the part that had always wondered, always imagined what it would be like to know her father, was curious. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "A chance to know you. A chance to know my granddaughter. A chance to help you if you'll accept help. I can't change the past, Naomi. I know that. But I'd like to be part of your future if you're willing. You don't know anything about me. You've just been watching from a distance like some," she struggled for words, "like some stalker." Lawrence flinched. "I deserve that. I deserve your anger. But will you at least hear me out?" Naomi wanted to say no. Wanted to protect herself from more potential hurt. But she heard herself say, "Fine. Talk." Lawrence took a breath. "I'm a federal judge, as I mentioned. I've been on the bench for 15 years. Before that, I was a prosecutor, then a defense attorney. I've built a successful career, but that success feels hollow knowing I sacrificed my family for it." "You didn't sacrifice your family. You abandoned us." "You're right. That's exactly what I did. And I've regretted it every day since your mother died. When I heard about the accident," his voice broke again, "I went to the funeral, stood in the back, saw you, this tiny 6-year-old girl, holding your grandmother's hand. I wanted to come forward then, wanted to tell you who I was. But your grandmother saw me. She followed me out after the service and told me in no uncertain terms that I'd given up any right to you when I walked away from Diane. That you didn't need a father who only showed up when it was convenient." "She was right," Naomi said. "She was. So I stayed away. But I made sure you were taken care of financially. Anonymous contributions to your school, to your grandmother's accounts. I couldn't be your father, but I could at least make sure you had resources." Naomi thought about the times growing up when money had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. The scholarship that paid for her college that Grandma Rose had said was from benefactors. The time Grandma Rose's mortgage suddenly got paid off, and she'd said it was from an insurance policy that finally came through. "That was you?" Naomi asked. "It was. I know money doesn't replace a father's presence. But it was all I could do." They sat in silence for a moment. Naomi's tea had gone cold. Her mind was racing. "Why now?" she finally asked. "Why show up now specifically?" Lawrence leaned forward. "Because when I saw what happened to you, when I saw that woman attack you in that hospital bed, I couldn't stay away anymore. I have power and influence in this state. I could have used it to help you, to protect you. But I didn't because I was still too much of a coward to face you. Then I watched your testimony at the trial. Watched you hold yourself together with such dignity while that defense lawyer tried to tear you apart. And I thought, that's my daughter. That's Diane's daughter. And I'm sitting here doing nothing while she fights this battle alone. I'm not alone. I have Grandma Rose." "I know. Rose Harris is a remarkable woman. She did a better job raising you than I ever could have. But she's not getting younger, and you're going through a divorce, raising a premature baby, dealing with trauma. You shouldn't have to do all of that without support. What kind of support are you offering? Whatever you need. Financial, legal, emotional. I have the best attorneys in the state on my speed dial. I have connections that could make your divorce go smoother. I have resources that could help with Isabella's medical bills and your future expenses. And I have 30 years of love that I never got to give you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve a place in your life. But I'm asking for the chance to earn it." Naomi felt tears building. She'd imagined meeting her father so many times as a child. Sometimes she'd imagined him as a hero who'd been unable to find her. Sometimes as a tragic figure who died young. Never had she imagined him as a successful judge who'd simply chosen his career over her. "I need time to think about this," Naomi said. "Of course. Take all the time you need." Lawrence pulled out a card and slid it across the table. "That's my personal cell phone. Call me if you want to talk. Or don't call. Either way, I'll respect your decision." He stood to leave, then paused. "May I ask, does she look like Diane? Your daughter?" Naomi felt a lump in her throat. "I don't know. I don't have many pictures of my mother. I have some. From when we were together. I'd be happy to share them with you if you'd like." After he left, Naomi sat in the coffee shop for another hour, staring at his business card. Lawrence Montgomery. Federal Judge. United States District Court. Her father. She called Grandma Rose. He found you, Grandma Rose said, not sounding surprised. You knew he might? I knew he'd been keeping track over the years. I had my suspicions about where some of that money came from. And when your story hit the news, I figured it might bring him out of hiding. Why didn't you tell me? Grandma Rose sighed. Because I didn't want you hoping for something that might never happen. Lawrence Montgomery is a complicated man, Naomi. He wasn't ready to be a father when your mother got pregnant. I've never been sure if he was a coward or if he genuinely believed you were better off without him. Maybe both. He wants to be involved now. Wants to help with the divorce, with Isabella, with everything. And what do you want? That was the question, wasn't it? What did Naomi want? She'd been fine without a father her whole life. She'd built a good life, become a good person without Lawrence Montgomery's presence. She didn't need him. But maybe that wasn't the question. Maybe the question was whether she wanted to know him. Whether Isabella deserved to know her grandfather. Whether Naomi wanted to let go of the anger and resentment she'd carried about her absent father and see if there was something worth salvaging. I don't know, Naomi admitted. Part of me wants to tell him to disappear again. But part of me is curious. Then be curious, Grandma Rose said. But protect your heart. Don't let him hurt you again. That night, Naomi looked at Lawrence's card for a long time. Then she sent him a text. I'd like to see those pictures of my mother. The response came within minutes. I can bring them tomorrow. Thank you for giving me this chance. The next day, Lawrence came to the nursing facility. Grandma Rose agreed to let him visit but insisted on being present. The meeting was awkward at first. Lawrence and Rose clearly had history, and not all of it good. But Lawrence was respectful and Rose was civil, and slowly they found their way to talking about Diane. Lawrence brought a small album of photos. There was Diane, young, beautiful, laughing. Diane at the beach. Diane at a concert. Diane and Lawrence together, their arms around each other, looking happy. Naomi stared at these pictures of her mother as a young woman, before motherhood, before death. She looked so alive, so full of possibilities. She loved you so much, Lawrence said quietly. Even before you were born. She talked to you, sing to you. She was so excited to be a mother. But you weren't excited to be a father, Naomi said. No, I was terrified. I was 24 in law school, broke and ambitious. A baby felt like the end of all my plans. I convinced myself that walking away was the right choice. For me, for her, for you. It wasn't until years later that I realized what I'd given up. They talked for hours. Lawrence answered every question Naomi had about her mother, about their relationship, about why he'd made the choices he did. He didn't make excuses, didn't try to justify abandoning her. He just told the truth even when it made him look bad. And slowly, Naomi began to see him not as the father she'd imagined but as a real, flawed person who'd made terrible mistakes and was trying to make amends. She didn't forgive him. Not yet. But she agreed to let him be part of Isabella's life. To let him help with the divorce if his connections could make things easier. I can't promise I'll ever see you as a father, Naomi told him honestly. But maybe we can figure out what you are to me. Maybe you can be family even if not in the traditional way. Lawrence's eyes filled with tears. That's more than I hoped for. Thank you. And that's how Naomi discovered that sometimes in the middle of your life falling apart, pieces you didn't even know were missing can suddenly appear. Having Lawrence Montgomery as a father, even a newly discovered, emotionally distant one, changed everything about Naomi's divorce. Within a week of their first meeting, Lawrence had connected Naomi with Margaret Chin, the top family law attorney in the state. Margaret made Rachel Graham look like an amateur. Mr. Montgomery has briefed me on your situation, Margaret said during their first meeting. I've reviewed your file. Your previous attorney did good work, but we're going to take this up several levels. I can't afford your rates, Naomi said honestly. I looked up your firm. Your retainer alone is more than I make in 3 months. Mr. Montgomery is covering all legal fees, Margaret said. His only condition is that we pursue this aggressively and get you everything you deserve. Naomi felt uncomfortable accepting Lawrence's money. But she also recognized that pride wouldn't protect Isabella's future or get her out of this marriage. Okay, she said. What's the plan? Margaret smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who enjoyed winning. First, we're going to use Simone Crawford's conviction to demonstrate your husband's poor judgment and the danger he exposed you and Isabella to. Second, we're going to thoroughly investigate his finances. The firm he works for, they do contracts with several medical institutions that receive federal funding. If Derek has been using company resources inappropriately, we'll find it. Using company resources? Expense accounts, company credit cards, any misuse of company time or money. Men having affairs often cover their tracks poorly. They think they're smarter than they are. Margaret was right. Within 2 weeks, her investigators had discovered a pattern. Derek had been using his company expense account to pay for hotels, dinners, even jewelry for Simone. He'd classified them as client entertainment expenses, but the investigators found no corresponding client meetings or sales from those dates. In other words, Derek had been embezzling from his company to fund his affair. This is more serious than divorce court, Margaret explained to Naomi. This is potentially criminal fraud. His company could press charges. Will they? When I informed them that their expense policies have been violated and that they're potentially liable for funding an extramarital affair that led to a criminal assault on an employee's pregnant wife. Yes, I believe they'll want to take action. Naomi felt a surge of satisfaction, followed quickly by guilt for feeling satisfied. But why should she feel guilty? Derek had made these choices. He'd stolen from his company, lied to everyone, and destroyed their family. He deserved consequences. Margaret contacted Derek's employer, a medical supply company called MedTech Solutions. The CEO, a woman named Patricia Winters, was not happy to learn how her company's money had been spent. We take ethics very seriously, Patricia told Margaret in a meeting Naomi was allowed to attend. If Mr. Bennett has been misusing company funds, we'll cooperate fully with any investigation. And we'll be terminating his employment immediately. Derek was fired within a week. His access to the building was revoked, his company car was repossessed, and his expense account was frozen. He called Naomi in a rage. You did this. You got me fired. I didn't get you fired, Derek. You got yourself fired by stealing from your company to pay for hotels with your mistress. Those were legitimate business expenses. Then you'll have no problem proving that in court. Your former employer is considering pressing charges for fraud. The line went silent for a moment. Then, you're trying to destroy my life. No, Derek. You destroyed your own life. You just can't accept responsibility for it. You cheated on your pregnant wife. Your mistress attacked me in a hospital bed. You lied to counselors, to lawyers, to your employer. Every single problem you're facing right now is a direct result of your own choices. I can't pay child support without a job. That's not my problem. You should have thought about that before you committed fraud. A judge will never let you have full custody just because I lost my job. Naomi almost laughed. Derek, do you know who Lawrence Montgomery is? No, why? He's a federal judge. He's one of the most respected legal minds in this state. And he's my father. Another silence. Then, you don't have a father. I do now. And trust me, you don't want to go up against him. Naomi hung up, feeling powerful for the first time in months. The divorce hearing was scheduled for early June. Margaret had prepared a comprehensive case documenting everything. The affair, the lies, the company fraud, Simone's attack, Derek's continued poor judgment. But Derek's lawyer tried to push back. They argued that Derek had lost his job because of Naomi's vendetta. That he couldn't pay significant child support without employment. That he deserved joint custody despite everything because he was Isabella's father. The judge hearing their case was the Honorable Teresa Walsh, a woman in her 50s known for being fair but stern. She listened to both sides present their cases over 2 days of testimony. Lawrence didn't testify, it wouldn't have been appropriate given his position. But his presence in the courtroom was felt. Other judges knew he was there. The court staff knew. And Derek's lawyer definitely knew. On the second day, Judge Walsh called both parties into her chambers. I'm going to be frank with you both, she said. Mr. Bennett, your behavior throughout this marriage and divorce has been appalling. You committed adultery, lied to counselors, exposed your wife to violence, and committed fraud against your employer. The only reason you're not facing criminal charges is that your former employer has chosen not to press them, yet. Derek's lawyer tried to interrupt. Your Honor, my client. I'm not finished, Judge Walsh said coldly. Mrs. Bennett, you have demonstrated remarkable restraint and dignity throughout this process. You've prioritized your daughter's well-being, built a stable home for her, and maintained employment while dealing with significant trauma. The contrast between you and Mr. Bennett is stark. She looked between them. Here's what's going to happen. Mrs. Bennett will have primary physical custody. Mr. Bennett will have supervised visitation every other weekend until he can demonstrate stable employment and housing. Child support will be calculated based on Mr. Bennett's earning potential, not his current unemployment, which means he'll need to find work quickly or face contempt charges. That's not fair. Derek burst out. Life isn't fair, Mr. Bennett. But the law is. And the law says you're responsible for supporting your child regardless of your employment status. I suggest you find a job soon. The final divorce decree was issued a week later. Naomi was awarded primary custody, the house they'd been buying together, most of their shared assets, and child support of $2,000 per month. Derek was left with his lawyer bills, no job, his car, and supervised visitation rights that would take at least 6 months of good behavior to convert to unsupervised. You destroyed me, Derek said when they finalized the paperwork. No, Naomi said calmly. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped pretending it wasn't happening. Walking out of that courthouse as a divorced woman, Naomi felt lighter than she had in years. Yes, she was a single mother. Yes, money would be tight until Derek found work and started paying support. But she was free. Free from the lies. Free from the gaslighting. Free from pretending her marriage was something it wasn't. Lawrence was waiting outside the courthouse. How are you feeling? Relieved. Exhausted. A little scared. But mostly relieved. You did the right thing. For yourself and for Isabella. They walked to a nearby park and sat on a bench. It was a beautiful June day, warm and sunny. Naomi closed her eyes and let the sun warm her face. Thank you, she said to Lawrence. For the lawyer, the support, all of it. I couldn't have gotten through this without your help. You would have gotten through it, Lawrence said. You're stronger than you realize. But I'm glad I could help make it easier. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you regret it? Not being my father all these years. Lawrence was quiet for a long moment. Every single day. Watching you from a distance, seeing the woman you became without me, it's been both my greatest pride and my deepest shame. Pride because you turned out so well despite my absence. Shame because I should have been there. Why weren't you? Really? Fear. Selfishness. Immaturity. Take your pick. I was a young man who saw a baby as an obstacle to my ambitions instead of as a blessing. By the time I realized what I'd given up, too many years had passed. I convinced myself you were better off without me. But that was just cowardice disguised as nobility. Naomi thought about that. About how people tell themselves stories to justify their choices. How Derek had probably told himself similar stories about the affair. How she told herself stories about why she should stay in the marriage. I'm not sure I can ever call you Dad, Naomi said honestly. I don't expect you to. Lawrence is fine. Or whatever feels right to you. But I'm glad you're here now. Isabella deserves to know her grandfather. And maybe I deserve to know my father, even if it's 30 years late. Lawrence's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. That means more than you know. Over the next few months, Lawrence became a regular presence in their lives. He visited twice a week, bringing groceries, helping with childcare, reading to Isabella. He never overstepped, never tried to replace Grandma Rose or act like he had more rights than he'd earned. He was just there. Consistently, reliably there. And slowly, Naomi began to trust him. Not completely. Not yet. But enough to let him be part of her new life. Derek meanwhile struggled. He found a new job but at a significant pay cut. His reputation in the medical supply industry had been damaged. His relationship with his family was strained. They blamed him for the divorce and were embarrassed by his behavior. Naomi heard through mutual acquaintances that Derek had tried to reconnect with Simone while she was in prison. But Simone had refused his visits and letters. She'd moved on, apparently, deciding Derek wasn't worth the trouble. Naomi felt a small, petty satisfaction at that. Derek had destroyed their marriage for a woman who ultimately didn't want him either. But mostly she just felt free. The first year after the divorce was hard. Naomi had expected relief and freedom and she got those things, but she also got loneliness, financial stress, and the exhausting reality of single parenthood. Isabella was a good baby, but she was still a baby. She woke up multiple times at night. She needed constant care and attention. And Naomi was doing it all alone, or mostly alone. Grandma Rose helped when she could, but she was getting older and tired more easily. Lawrence helped too, but he had his work obligations. Most of the day-to-day work fell on Naomi's shoulders. Some days she felt strong and capable. Other days she felt like she was drowning. I miss having a partner, she admitted to her therapist, Dr. Simmons, during one session. Not Derek specifically. Just having someone to share the load with. Someone to hand the baby to when I need a break. That's a completely normal feeling, Dr. Simmons said. Being a single parent is exhausting. But remember, you didn't have a real partner even when you were married. Derek was physically present but emotionally absent. That was true. In many ways, single parenting was easier than parenting with someone who undermined her, lied to her, and made everything harder. Still, Naomi mourned the idea of partnership. The idea of someone to share late-night feedings with, someone to laugh with about Isabella's funny faces, someone to plan the future with. But she was determined not to rush into anything. Dr. Simmons had warned her about rebound relationships. The temptation to fill the void left by Derek with someone new before she was truly ready. Take time to figure out who you are outside of marriage, Dr. Simmons advised. Rediscover yourself. Learn to be happy alone before you try to be happy with someone else. So Naomi focused on herself and Isabella. She redecorated the small apartment she'd rented after the divorce. Nothing fancy, but it was hers and it was safe. She painted the walls bright colors. She hung pictures of Isabella, of Grandma Rose, and, after some hesitation, one photo of her and her mother that Lawrence had given her. She joined a support group for single parents. Listening to other people's stories of divorce, betrayal, and resilience helped her feel less alone. She also joined a support group specifically for people whose partners had cheated. That group was both helpful and frustrating. Some members seemed stuck in their anger, reliving their betrayals over and over. Others had moved on and offered hope that Naomi could do the same. You have to grieve the marriage you thought you had, one woman said. Not the real marriage, that wasn't worth grieving. But the imagined one. The one you thought you were building. That loss is real and you have to let yourself feel it. Naomi took that advice to heart. She let herself grieve. She cried on nights when Isabella was finally asleep and the apartment was quiet. She cried for the future she'd imagined. The family. Photos that would never be taken. The holidays with both parents. The simple, normal family life she'd wanted so badly. But she also celebrated what she had. Isabella was thriving. At 1 year old, she was walking, babbling constantly, and had the biggest smile. She looked like Naomi but had Derek's nose and chin. Naomi tried not to hold that against her. You're my whole world, Naomi told Isabella every night at bedtime. You and me against the world, baby girl. Work was another source of healing. Naomi had always loved teaching, but after the divorce she loved it even more. Her kindergartners were pure and innocent. They didn't judge her for being divorced. They didn't care about her complicated past. They just wanted her to read them stories, help them tie their shoes, and give them hugs when they fell down. Ms. Bennett, why do you only have pictures of your baby at home? One student asked during sharing time. Where's your husband? I'm not married anymore, sweetie. It's just me and Isabella. That's sad. Sometimes, Naomi admitted, but sometimes it's good too. We have a nice life, just the two of us. The child seemed satisfied with that answer and moved on to asking about snack time. Children's resilience amazed Naomi. They accepted things as they were without dwelling on how things should be. She tried to learn from them. During this time, Naomi also grew closer to Lawrence. He was still learning how to be a grandfather, and his initial attempts were awkward. He bought Isabella expensive toys more appropriate for older children. He didn't know how to change diapers. He panicked when she cried. But he tried. And his trying meant something. I'm sorry I'm not better at this, Lawrence said one day after Isabella had cried through his entire visit. You're doing fine. Babies are hard. They cry for no reason sometimes. Your grandmother makes it look easy. Grandma Rose raised me from infancy. She's had decades of practice. You've had months. Give yourself a break. Lawrence smiled. When did you become so wise? I've always been wise. You just weren't around to notice. It was the first time Naomi had made a joke about his absence. Lawrence's face fell, but then he saw her slight smile and realized she was teasing. Sort of. I deserve that, he said. Yeah, you do. But you're here now. That counts for something. Their relationship was complicated. Naomi didn't call him dad. That felt like too much. Lawrence felt too formal. So Isabella started calling him Papa Law, and somehow that stuck for all of them. Papa Law brought you a present, Naomi would tell Isabella. Or, we're going to see Papa Law today. It worked. Grandma Rose, meanwhile, was slowing down. The stroke had affected her more than she wanted to admit. She needed more rest, more help. Naomi worried constantly about losing her. I'm not going anywhere yet, Grandma Rose insisted. I want to see this baby grow up. I want to see you happy again. I've got things to stick around for. I am happy, Naomi said. You're healing. That's different. But you'll get to happy. I can see it coming. Grandma Rose was right about the healing part. Naomi was healing. Slowly. Imperfectly. But healing. She started taking care of herself again. She'd let herself go during the marriage and the stress of the divorce. Now she started exercising again, eating better, taking time for things she enjoyed. She started reading for pleasure again, something she'd stopped doing when Derek complained she paid more attention to books than to him. She took Isabella to the park every weekend. She took photographs and started a scrapbook. She wrote letters to Isabella to give her when she was older, explaining all the things she wanted her daughter to know. "Your father isn't a bad person," Naomi wrote in one letter. "He's a weak person. He made choices that hurt people because he was thinking only of himself. But you are not responsible for his choices. You are your own person and you get to choose who you want to be." One day, about 18 months after the divorce, Naomi was at the grocery store with Isabella when she ran into someone from her past. "Naomi? Naomi Harris? Oh my gosh, it's been years." Naomi turned and saw a familiar face, Claire, a friend from college. They'd been close once but had drifted apart after graduation. "Claire. Hi." They caught up briefly in the produce section. Claire had gotten married, moved away for her husband's job, and recently moved back. "We should get together," Claire said. "I'd love to meet your daughter and catch up properly." They exchanged numbers, and Naomi was surprised by how good it felt to reconnect with an old friend. She'd isolated herself during the marriage. Derek had always found reasons why they couldn't spend time with her friends. Now she was free to rebuild those connections. She and Claire started meeting for coffee once a week. Claire knew about the divorce, she'd seen it on social media, but she didn't pry. She just offered friendship without judgment. "You seem different than you did in college," Claire observed one day. "Stronger. More sure of yourself." "I had to become stronger. Divorce has a way of forcing you to grow up fast." "You're doing an amazing job. Isabella is lucky to have you." Compliments like that meant more to Naomi than Claire probably realized. She'd spent so long feeling like a failure. Failed wife, failed marriage, failed family. Hearing someone say she was doing well helped counter all the negative voices in her head. By the time Isabella turned 2, Naomi felt like she'd finally found her footing. She had a routine that worked. She had a support system. She had peace. She still had hard days. Days when she felt overwhelmed or lonely or worried about the future. But they were balanced by good days. Days when Isabella did something adorable, or when Naomi felt proud of herself for handling something well, or when she realized she'd gone a whole week without thinking about Derek at all. "I'm proud of you," Grandma Rose said one evening. They were sitting on the small patio of Naomi's apartment, watching Isabella play with sidewalk chalk. For what? For surviving. For thriving. For being the mother Isabella needs and the woman you deserve to be. Naomi felt tears well up. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have. But I'm glad you didn't have to." That night, after Isabella was asleep, Naomi stood in her small apartment and looked around. It wasn't much. One bedroom that she shared with Isabella, a tiny living room, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. But it was safe. It was peaceful. It was hers. And that was enough. For now, that was more than enough. 2.5 years after the divorce, Naomi discovered a new passion entirely by accident. Isabella was 3 now, attending preschool 3 days a week. Naomi had taken on some afternoon tutoring to supplement her teaching income, and one of her students had asked her to help with a creative writing assignment. "I have to write a short story," the 10-year-old girl explained. "But I don't know how to start." Naomi helped her brainstorm ideas, and in the process something clicked in her own mind. She'd always loved books, had always dreamed of writing, but had never pursued it because Derek had dismissed it as impractical. "You want to write children's books?" He'd scoffed when she'd mentioned it once. "Do you know how hard it is to get published? Stick to teaching. At least that pays the bills." But Derek was gone now, and his opinions no longer mattered. That night, after Isabella was asleep, Naomi opened her laptop and started writing. A story about a little girl who had to be brave even when she was scared. A little girl whose family looked different than other families, but who learned that different didn't mean less. The words poured out of her. 3 hours later, she had a rough draft of a picture book. It wasn't perfect. It probably wasn't even good. But it was hers and it felt right. Over the next few months, Naomi wrote in whatever spare moments she could find. Early mornings before Isabella woke up. Late nights after bedtime. During her lunch break at school. She wrote story after story, creating characters who dealt with divorce, single parents, blended families, all the complicated family situations her students faced. "You're writing a lot lately," Grandma Rose observed. "I'm trying something new. Children's books." "That's wonderful. Your mother used to write poetry, did you know that?" "No, I didn't." "She did. Beautiful poems about love and loss and hope. I wish I'd kept more of them." But I gave most of her things away after she died. Didn't think you'd want them. I would have, Naomi said softly. I know that now. But grief makes you do strange things. You try to erase the pain and you end up erasing the good memories too. Naomi thought about that. She'd done the same thing with her marriage. Tried to erase Derek so completely that she'd almost erased the fact that there had been good times. Brief maybe. Based on lies, definitely. But there had been moments of happiness. She'd loved him once. That was real, even if his love for her hadn't been. After 6 months of writing, Naomi had a collection of 10 picture books. She started researching how to get published and quickly became overwhelmed. Traditional publishing seemed nearly impossible. Self-publishing was expensive and time-consuming. What about showing them to Lawrence? Grandma Rose suggested. He knows a lot of people. Maybe one of them works in publishing. Naomi hesitated. She'd grown closer to Lawrence over the past few years, but she still felt uncomfortable asking him for favors. She didn't want him to think she was using him. But Grandma Rose was right. What was the point of having a well-connected father if you didn't at least ask for advice? She called Lawrence and explained what she'd been working on. That's wonderful, Lawrence said, genuinely enthusiastic. I'd love to read them. And I do know some people in publishing. Let me see what your stories are like first, then I can make some introductions if they're ready. Naomi emailed him her manuscripts, then spent the next week anxious about his reaction. What if they were terrible? What if he told her she'd wasted her time? Lawrence called a week later. Naomi, these are really good. Genuinely good. They're honest and heartfelt, and kids need books like this. I think you should pursue this seriously. Really? Really? I sent them to a friend who's a children's book editor. She wants to meet with you. That meeting led to a contract for 3 books. The advance wasn't huge, $15,000 split across 3 books, but it was validation that her stories mattered. That her voice mattered. Your first book will be out in about 18 months, the editor, Bethany, explained. Picture books take time. We need to find the right illustrator, go through revisions, design the layout. But I think this book, Brave Enough for Both of Us, is going to resonate with a lot of families. Brave Enough for Both of Us was about a little girl whose mother had to be brave enough for both of them after her father left. It was autobiographical in the most obvious way, but it was also universal. Every kid who dealt with family disruption could see themselves in it. When Naomi told Isabella about the book deal, her daughter didn't really understand. You wrote a book, Mama? Yes, baby. A book about a little girl like you. Can I see it? Not yet. Takes a long time to make a book. But when it comes out, you'll be the first person to read it. Will it have pictures? Lots of pictures. Good. I like pictures. The book's publication was scheduled for the fall, 2 years away. It seemed like forever. But Naomi used the time well. She kept teaching, kept writing, kept building her new life. She also started dating again. Nothing serious. Just coffee dates and dinners with men Claire set her up with or men she met through dating apps. Most of them didn't go anywhere. Bad conversationalists, still hung up on their ex-wives, looking for a mother for their kids rather than a partner. But one date stood out. Julian was a pediatric nurse at the hospital where Isabella had been in the NICU. Naomi didn't remember him specifically, but he remembered her. You used to come every day, Julian said over coffee. You'd sit by her incubator for hours just talking to her. The staff used to say how dedicated you were. She was so tiny. I was so scared I'd lose her. I could tell. But you were also so strong. I remember thinking that baby was lucky to have you as a mother. They talked for 3 hours. Julian was easy to talk to, funny without trying too hard, and genuinely interested in Naomi as a person. He didn't push for anything physical. He didn't try to rush past the getting to know you stage. They went on a second date. Then a third. After the 4th date, Naomi mentioned him to Dr. Simmons. I think I like him, Naomi said. Is that okay? Is it too soon? It's been almost 3 years since your divorce. And from what you've told me, your marriage was emotionally over long before that. You're allowed to move on, Naomi? I don't want to rush into anything. I don't want to make the same mistakes. What mistakes do you think you made with Derek? Naomi thought about that. I ignored red flags. I convinced myself problems would get better if I just tried harder. I lost myself in being his wife instead of being me. And are you doing any of those things with Julian? No. He's different. He asks about my day. He remembers things I tell him. He's genuinely kind, not just charming. And he doesn't pressure me for anything. We've been dating for 2 months and we've only kissed goodnight a few times. Does that bother you? No. Feels right. Like we're building something real instead of rushing into intensity. Dr. Simmons smiled. That sounds healthy. Just keep checking in with yourself. Make sure you're being authentic and honoring your own needs. Naomi introduced Julian to Isabella slowly. First just accidentally running into him at the park. Then inviting him to join them for ice cream. Then having him over for dinner. Isabella liked him immediately. Mr. Julian is nice, Isabella announced. He pushed me on the swings really high. Did you have fun? Yes. Can he come again? Maybe. We'll see. Naomi was cautious about letting anyone into Isabella's life. She didn't want her daughter to get attached to someone who might not stick around. But Julian seemed steady. Reliable. Real. After 4 months of dating, Julian met Grandma Rose and Lawrence. That felt like a bigger step than introducing him to Isabella. What are your intentions with my granddaughter? Grandma Rose asked bluntly. Julian didn't flinch. I care about her. I'd like to keep getting to know her and see where this goes. But I'm not in a rush. I'm not trying to replace anyone or force anything. I just really like spending time with her. And the baby? Isabella is part of Naomi's life, which means she's part of any relationship I have with Naomi. I respect that. I'm not trying to be her father. She has a father. But I'd like to be someone positive in her life. Grandma Rose nodded approvingly. Good answer. Lawrence was more reserved. Naomi's been through a lot. If you're not serious about this, if you're just dating casually, you should tell her now. I am serious, Julian said. I've been serious since our second date. But Naomi's been hurt badly, and I'm not going to push her faster than she's ready to go. After Julian left, Grandma Rose turned to Naomi. That one's a keeper. It's still early, Naomi protested. Maybe. But he's got a good heart. I can tell. By the time Brave Enough for Both of Us was released, Naomi and Julian had been dating for almost a year. He came to her book launch party, standing in the back of the bookstore and beaming with pride as Naomi read her story to a room full of children and parents. The book was a modest success. It sold well locally and got good reviews. More importantly, it connected with families. Naomi started getting emails from single parents thanking her for writing a book that represented their lives. My daughter finally feels like she's not the only one whose family is different, one mother wrote. Thank you for giving her that. Those messages meant more than sales numbers ever could. Tom. Combined with her teaching salary and the child support Derek was finally paying consistently, Naomi was financially stable for the first time since the divorce. I did it, she told Dr. Simmons. I rebuilt my life. I found my voice. I'm happy. How does that feel? Scary. Like if I admit I'm happy, something will come along and take it away. That's understandable given what you've been through. But try to sit with the happiness. Let yourself feel it without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Naomi tried. And slowly she stopped waiting for disaster. She let herself believe that good things could last. That she deserved happiness. That her life could be full and rich without Derek in it. On Isabella's 4th birthday, Naomi threw a party at the park. Julian was there helping set up. Grandma Rose was there supervising. Lawrence was there taking photos. Claire was there with her kids. It was a small party, but it was full of love. As Naomi watched Isabella blow out her candles, surrounded by people who truly cared about her, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. This was her family now. Not traditional. Not perfect. But real and full of love. And that was better than any fairy tale she'd once imagined. 4 years after the attack that had changed everything, Naomi stood in the NICU at the same hospital where Isabella had fought for her life. But this time she wasn't a patient. She was here as an author, reading Brave Enough for Both of Us, to a group of parents whose babies were in the same incubators Isabella had once occupied. When Mama holds me close, I can feel her heart beating, Naomi read from her book. Strong and steady. Brave enough for both of us. Several mothers were crying. Naomi understood. She'd been one of them once, terrified, exhausted, wondering if her baby would survive. After the reading, parents came up to thank her. Your book helped my daughter understand why she was in the hospital, one father said. She's 4 now, but she still talks about being a NICU baby. Your book made her feel special instead of scared. That's why I wrote it, Naomi said. I wanted kids like Isabella to have a story that represented their start in life. Nicole, the NICU nurse who'd helped care for Isabella, pulled Naomi aside after the event. You've come so far, Nicole said. I remember when you were here, broken and scared. Look at you now. I remember thinking I'd never be okay again, Naomi admitted. But here we are. Here you are, Nicole agreed. And Isabella's thriving? She's amazing. Smart, funny, stubborn as hell. She starts kindergarten in the fall. Kindergarten. Time flies. It did. Sometimes Naomi couldn't believe Isabella was about to start school. Couldn't believe 4 years had passed since that terrible night. So much had changed. Derek was remarried now, to someone new, not Simone. He'd gotten his life somewhat together, found a decent job, became a marginally better father. He had Isabella every other weekend, and while Naomi still didn't trust him completely, she'd learned to co-parent civilly for Isabella's sake. Simone had been released from prison after serving 3 years. Naomi had no idea what happened to her after that and didn't care to find out. That chapter was closed. Grandma Rose was still alive, though frailier than before. She'd moved from the nursing facility into Naomi's new house. A real house with a yard, 3 bedrooms, and enough space for everyone. Lawrence had helped with the down payment, though Naomi made the mortgage payments herself. She was proud of that independence. Lawrence was fully integrated into their lives now. He came to Isabella's dance recitals. He taught her to play chess. He spoiled her with books instead of toys. He and Naomi had built something real, even if they'd never fully healed the wound of his 30-year absence. And Julian had become permanent. They'd moved in together 6 months ago. He proposed on Christmas, a simple proposal with no pressure. "I love you and Isabella," he'd said. "I'd like to marry you whenever you're ready. If you're ever ready. No rush. I'm just putting it out there." Naomi had said yes, but they were taking their time planning the wedding. She wanted to do it right this time. Wanted a marriage built on honesty and partnership, not desperation and denial. "We have the rest of our lives," Julian liked to say. "No need to rush." That patience, that respect for her pace, was one of the things Naomi loved most about him. Isabella adored Julian. She called him Jules, and followed him around the house constantly. She didn't remember much about the early years when Derek was more present. In her mind, Jules had always been there. "Is Jules going to be my real dad now?" Isabella had asked when she learned about the engagement. "Jules will be your stepfather," Naomi explained carefully. "You already have a father, Derek. But Jules will also be a dad to you in his own way. You'll have lots of people who love you." "That's good," Isabella said pragmatically. "More people to play with me." Children made complicated things seem simple. The wedding was planned for the fall, a small ceremony with just close family and friends. Naomi was designing her own dress. She'd discovered a talent for sewing and had made several of Isabella's outfits. "You're full of hidden talents," Claire said when Naomi showed her the dress design. "I'm figuring out who I am outside of being someone's wife," Naomi said. "Turns out I'm creative and capable and stronger than I thought." "You were always those things. You just couldn't see it." Maybe that was true. Maybe Derek's presence had obscured her view of herself. Or maybe she'd simply grown into these qualities through surviving hard times. Either way, Naomi liked who she was becoming. Her 4th book, Different Kinds of Families, had just been released. It featured families of all configurations. Single parents, grandparents raising grandchildren, step-families, adopted families. The message was simple: family is about love, not structure. The book had struck a chord. Schools were ordering it for their libraries. Parent groups were recommending it. And most importantly, kids were reading it and seeing themselves reflected. "You're changing lives," Bethany, her editor, told her. "These books matter." Naomi's 5th book was already in the works. This one was about a little girl learning to forgive, not forgetting but letting go of anger so it didn't poison her future. It was the story Naomi wished she'd had when she was younger. On the anniversary of the attack, Naomi marked it privately every year, a day of reflection. She visited the park where she'd first told Lawrence she'd give him a chance to be in their lives. So much had happened since that day. So much had changed. Derek had destroyed her life, or so she'd thought at the time. But looking back, Naomi could see that he'd actually freed her. Forced her to build something new. Something real. Something better. "I'm grateful," Naomi whispered to no one in particular. "I'm grateful for the hard times because they taught me what I'm made of. I'm grateful for the pain because it led me here." Her phone buzzed. A text from Julian: "Isabella wants to know if we can have tacos for dinner. I said probably yes but wanted to check with you first." Naomi smiled. This was her life now. Mundane questions about dinner. A man who checked with her before making plans. A daughter who had opinions about food. Normal. Healthy. Happy. She texted back, "Tacos sound perfect." When she got home, Isabella ran to meet her at the door. Mama. Guess what? Papa Law is coming to dinner too. And he's bringing Grandma. Is he? That's wonderful. Inside, Julian was setting the table. Grandma Rose was sitting in her favorite chair by the window, dozing. The house smelled like home. Tacos cooking, flowers from the garden Julian had planted, Isabella's crayons and paper spread across the coffee table. This was what Naomi had wanted all along. Not a picture-perfect nuclear family. Just people who loved each other authentically. People who showed up. People who kept their promises. During dinner, surrounded by her chosen family, Lawrence, Grandma Rose, Julian, and Isabella, Naomi felt overwhelming gratitude. "What are you smiling about?" Julian asked. "Just thinking about how far we've come. How different life is now." "Better different?" "Much better different." After dinner, after Lawrence and Grandma Rose had gone home, after Isabella was asleep, Naomi and Julian sat on the back porch together. "Do you ever miss it?" Julian asked. "The idea of a traditional family?" "I have a family," Naomi said. "It looks different than I once imagined, but it's real. And that's better than any fantasy." "No regrets about Derek?" Naomi thought about that. Did she have regrets? Not about leaving. Not about divorcing him. Maybe about staying as long as she had. Maybe about ignoring the red flags. But even those mistakes had taught her valuable lessons. "I regret the time I wasted," Naomi finally said. "But I don't regret where it led me. If I hadn't gone through all that, I wouldn't be here now. I wouldn't have written my books. I wouldn't have found you. I wouldn't know myself the way I do now." "So you're saying Derek did you a favor by being awful?" Naomi laughed. "I wouldn't go that far. But his betrayal forced me to build a better life. So in a weird way, I guess I should thank him." "Please don't. His ego's big enough already." They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands, watching the stars come out. Naomi thought about the woman she'd been 4 years ago, broken, terrified, unsure if she'd survive what Derek and Simone had put her through. She thought about the woman she was now, published author, engaged to a good man, raising a healthy daughter, connected to her father, surrounded by people who truly loved her. That scared, hurt woman in the hospital bed had survived. More than survived. She'd thrived. And if she could do it, Naomi thought, anyone could. "What are you thinking about?" Julian asked. "Revenge," Naomi said. Julian looked surprised. "What?" "Not the destructive kind. The kind where you survive and build something beautiful. Where you live well and love deeply. Where you refuse to let someone else's betrayal define you. That's the best revenge, becoming happy despite everything." "You're happy?" "I'm happy," Naomi confirmed. "Genuinely, truly happy. For the first time in years, maybe ever." Julian squeezed her hand. "Good. You deserve happiness. So do you. I'm getting there. Building a life with you and Isabella, that's pretty close to perfect." That night, Naomi wrote in the journal she kept for Isabella. She'd been writing entries since Isabella was born, planning to give them to her daughter when she was older. "Dear Isabella," she wrote, "today I thought about revenge. Not the angry kind, but the powerful kind. The revenge of living well. Of being happy. Of refusing to let pain break you. Your father hurt me deeply. His mistress hurt me physically. But they didn't destroy me. They didn't even diminish me. Because I chose to use that pain as fuel to build something better. You're too young to understand this now, but someday you will. The best revenge isn't hurting those who hurt you. It's becoming so completely yourself, so fully alive and joyful, that their past actions become irrelevant. I'm writing this to remind you, and to remind myself, that we survived. We more than survived. We thrived. And that, my darling girl, is the sweetest revenge of all. Love, Mama." Naomi closed the journal and looked around her home. Not perfect, not fancy, but filled with love and truth and the kind of joy that comes from surviving hard things. She'd gotten her revenge. Not through destroying Derek or making him suffer, but through building a life so full and rich that he became nothing more than a cautionary tale in her past. She'd gotten her revenge by becoming happy. And that, Naomi thought with satisfaction, was worth more than any punishment she